Hello and welcome to Youth Online for this week. It is week 5. I want to say thanks to everyone who responded to last week's video. One person said that what stood out to them was that people in this passage, it was the passage about Elijah and the sacrifice, if you remember, he said people in this passage are worshipping the Lord because they saw something happen, the fire. And I think that God is saying to me that I should try to show people that the Lord is God and try to get them to be a follower of Jesus. How good. Thanks for that, man. That was really, really awesome. Make sure you keep sending great stuff through like that, guys, every single week, because I would love to hear about what you're getting out of the passage and what you feel like God's saying to you. Well, this week we are continuing to look through how we read different genres of books in the Bible. Last week we looked at story, and this week we're going to be looking at poetry. Now, believe it or not, there's actually quite a lot of poetry and songs in the Bible. You know, you have different poetic stories, you have the Songs of Solomon, and of course you have the Book of Psalms, which is a book of 150 different poems or songs. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Psalms and poetry are in the Bible to kind of like stories, to teach us things without necessarily saying it outright. But poetry and psalms, they kind of go into a little bit of a different directions to stories. Where stories try to tell us facts about things or about God or about us or ourselves, poetry instead tries to show us an example of where our hearts should be. They are expressions of intense emotion. You know, there's a guy who says that every single emotion that can be had is shown in the Psalms. They are expressions of all of these emotions. And when we try to interpret the Psalms, when we try to figure out what it's saying to us, it's meant to be used as an example for us, to show us how to love God and how to live as His people. Now, Psalms don't necessarily give us facts, they can, but they don't necessarily do that. Instead, they give us examples on where our hearts should be in words. They are there to instruct and put words around the way that we are to relate to and worship God. Now, there are many different kinds of psalms, but the main 3 types are called hymns of praise, thanksgiving, and lament. And look, we won't go into those right now, but basically each of those, along with all the other types of psalms, show us how we are to worship God when life is good, when life is bad, and in response to when He helps us out with things in our life. And so today we're going to be looking at one of those psalms, and we're going to be looking at a really well-known psalm called Psalm 23. Psalm 23 is a psalm that shows confidence in what God can do. It's likely to have been written by David, who, if you don't know his story, he was forced to wander around the desert while King Saul was trying to chase him down and kill him. And then eventually he takes Saul's place as king of Israel, and he becomes this king. Now, this could have been written before David was in the desert being chased. It could have been written while he was in the desert. It could have been written after, when he was king of Israel. So when you're reading it, I want you to be thinking, when do I reckon this was written? Was this written before? Was it written during that trial in the desert? Or was it written out of a response of what God had done in bringing him out of the desert and making him king of Israel? So read this psalm a few times, and as you do, reflect on it, and reflect on what is this saying about God? What is this passage saying about us as humanity? And also ask God the question, God, what are you saying to me through this passage? Now, today is a short video for this week, so I'm going to leave it there, but let me know how you're going in the comment box. Let me know if you have anything that comes out of it, just like the people have in the last few weeks. But otherwise, I'll see you guys next week. If you're in the green group, then you are invited to join us on site, and I'll see the rest of you later. Have a good week, guys. Bye.